so much morale. And the guy was, Tom was awesome when he would talk to me every day. And he'd boost me and, hey, it's morale. Anything you do in the military is great. Doesn't matter if you're a cook. Well, actually, the food sucks in the Army. So yeah, screw that. But if you're a band member, because now you can just order whatever. But yeah, the food sucks in the military. But no, the band members and everything, I've been deployed a few times, and you get home, there's nothing better to listen to that band or the drummer drumming. All right? And that was Tom. That's what he did, right? And he was amazing. Okay? It was great. But he always used to tell me, well, I had no effect in the military or anything. Yes, he did. He really did. So, with all that being said, Tom was awesome. And I used to see him at Baker Street, and we'd talk about this all the time, about the military and all this. But by behalf of the United States government, the United States Army, we present you this flag for his service to the United States military, okay? Well, let's party. For Tom. But no, serious, it meant so much for me just to give that to him. It's serious. I don't even have the words for it. Tom was awesome. I don't have the words for it, but that's what he said. Oh, I was just in the band, just in the band. No, you weren't just in the band. You did a lot for the United States military in your short term. So, it was great. All right? Hey. Thank you. Love Tom.
Thank you so much. I have to totally, you'd give everybody a little Spanish lesson. You say, Cinco de Mayo, that's a fifth of mayonnaise. And La Quinta means next to Denny's. So just remember that.
Hi, my name's Lee, and I'm one of the Baker Street boys with Tom. And I'll tell you what, Tom gave you both barrels. Anything you talked to him about, it was funny. I mean, he made jokes about everything, and then he laughed at his own jokes. So even if he wasn't funny, you had to laugh, because when he laughed at his own jokes, he was up there in the ozone. But Tom never made jokes about other people. He was one of the nicest, friendliest, wonderful people you'll ever meet. And I'll never forget him. We talked about everything under the sun, and everything was always funny. Basically, my favorite memories with Tom was sitting next to him and just having fun. And that's what he was. He was a fun guy, he was a friendly guy, he was great with everybody.
Both he grew up near Al Capone's house on Palm Island in Florida, and I grew up in Al Capone's town, Chicago, Cicero. And we both went to college in the Midwest, Southern Illinois University, and he went to Parsons College. I always kidded him about, oh, are you going to their homecoming? Because Parsons College does not exist anymore. It is the Maharishi University. And then we both grew up with musical careers. I played the trombone in the grade school band, but I gave it up in high school, and he still went on with the drums and did well with it in different bands. And I saw one of his bands play out there on Federal, and that was a couple of years ago now. It was a opening of a barbecue place, Bedroom in Bellevue. And the last year of his life, I tried to cheer him up somewhat. I would send him emails of some of the events that were going on at Baker Street, the Halloween party, with a lot of pictures attached, and also the regulars buffet they had over there, and I always used to sit with Tom and his wife there, and I added some crazy pictures of celebrities having dinner too. Just to joke around, and he got a kick out of that. And then New Year's Eve party they had there, and I sent him more pictures. Some people dancing naked. I said, "See what you missed? I hope to cheer him up, and I hope that did some good." So I kind of really missed Tom.
I remember the first time I met Tom. What a really nice, approachable person. And I remember he had an office in the Denver Tech Center when he was selling real estate. And he was at the office where we would go into a common break room and get coffee and so on and so forth. And this particular Monday, he had brought Andrew to work, and I was in the kitchen having coffee, and he asked me how my weekend was, and I said, well, you know, it could have been better. I said, we've finally come to the conclusion that we have to put my mom into some sort of assisted living or home care or whatever. And he goes, oh my gosh. He said, my wife Linda just retired from the airlines. I go, really? I said, both of my sisters work for the airlines. He said, yeah. She said she worked for United and she's retired and she wants to do home care. I go, really? Are you just kidding me? Because I said, we really need to find somebody for my mom. He goes, no, I'm serious. He said, I'm going to write her name and number down. You need to call her. He said, I'll let her know that you're going to call, but you need to call her and ask her about taking care of your mom. So, truthfully, the rest is history because Linda took care of our mom, and Tom and Linda became our family over the years. And he was just the most incredible, approachable person. And a funny story about Tom. So, my husband and I, of course, lived here for a few years before we met them, and I remember seeing Tom Lewis on every bench for real estate. So the day we met him, we're like, we already know you because we've seen your face on the real estate benches for like years, and it was so crazy, and we just love them. They're such a good family, and the kids, and just their whole belief system, and just what a wonderful family they were. And you know, up until honestly maybe a year ago, we saw Tom play the drums at Nona's, and he was just fighting through it and fighting through it. He was just such a lovely man, and I feel so blessed to have met him and to have introduced our families together, and Linda taking care of my mother, who was just an angel. Linda could not have done a better job, and we don't feel like friends at all. We really feel like family, and Tom was a wonderful person. And I was very thankful that I got to meet him.
Well, I don't know that I have a lot of memories of Tom, but I just want to say that I just really appreciated how Tom and just the whole family just took David and brought him into the fold of their family, and just, you know, included him in so many things, and just made it really a second home for him. And I just appreciate the friendship of Linda, and just a wonderful woman, and just wonderful family. And Tom was just so supportive of David, and I just really am grateful and thankful. And I just just love them.
Okay, my name is Dewey Hicks, and I know Tom from a place we hung out, which is Baker Street. And Tom kind of took me under his wing when I first got there, and I became one of the members of. It's almost like a little Baker Street family. We hang out, and just reminisce and drink beer, drink whatever we want to drink. I had a connection with Tom when I first met him. I realized that he had been in the Army. And he'd been in the Army, he was in the band, and during the Vietnam War. And of course that got my attention. I was in Vietnam in '66 and '67. There's one place I would wish on anybody. And he always would almost disavow having been in the service. But to me, he was as much of a hero as anybody who had boots on the ground. In fact, now we honor the Vietnam veterans, Vietnam era veterans, so you don't have to have had boots on the ground. You can be served in other countries, a fuel and jets or something, and just been part of it. In Tom's case, he was in the band, which is very important for the morale of the troops. And in fact, I believe that he had a commendation from Colin Powell. And it's just something extra, and that made him closer. I guess we're all a band of brothers, no matter who we are, what branch of service or what we did. But you know, at least he served. He was not afraid to serve. You know, he said one time he wished he had been in Vietnam, but I told him I wouldn't wish I'd hellhole on anybody. And you know, we went on from there. I learned a lot about his taste in music. He was a drummer, of course, and we would talk about drums and such. I was wannabe keyboard player, which I never amounted to anything as far as that is concerned. But certainly, he would talk about these hi-hats on the drums and different drumming styles. He knew everything from Gene Krupa and these Buddy Rich, up to the drummer for the Led Zeppelin. I forget who that gentleman was. It was can't think of him. But he passed away. He lived hard. He played hard, and he enjoyed that one song that the Led Zeppelin played, "Stairway to Heaven." I think Robert Plant was on there. John Bonham was the drummer, John Bonham. And that was kind of his go-to, I don't know, I wouldn't say hero, but the man that he kind of looked up to on the drums. And he knew a lot about drums and drumming. I think he was just an expert on the, on the whole thing, but he was very modest. He never touted himself or spoke that he was better than anybody else or anything. He was just always kind of a humble person, but he knew what he was doing with the drums. He knew his music. We discussed, I knew a little about music, as of course I took, had music classes and courses and played piano when I was a kid. Nothing like Tom though, but he was a good guy. And then going forward, I took ill in 2005, and I lost my hand and eye coordination. And he would come and take me around to different places, wherever I wanted to go. And he was just like an understanding person. And I think his wife Linda was the same. And that whole 2005 incident came about as a result of Agent Orange. So I was kind of sensitive to that and his, respect for what had happened and such. He didn't, he didn't try to brush me off or anything like that. He was always a kind person, but a good timing person. I think that his friends and associates from that era he played in, he had a card that had all the bands that he played with. I said, gee whiz. He was just a tremendous person, a great drummer to me, just a tremendous humanitarian, and I'm glad to have known him. Thank you.
I'm Tom's nephew. Tom is my uncle, and that's one story I want to tell. Is Tom? I didn't know Tom for a good part of my life. My grandfather was Tom's father, and my mother, Tom and my mother shared a father. So my mother is Tom's half sister. Do I have that right? Yeah. So anyway, my grandmother and Tom's father split up when my mom was 2, and my mom never knew her father, never knew Tom's father, whose name was also Tom. So when I was in high school, when I was about 14 or 15, my grandmother comes to my mother with this picture of her ex-husband and says, you know, the older Jeff gets, the more he looks like your father. And shows my mom this picture, and they're like, oh my gosh, he does. And Mom said, I want to go find my dad. And so she did, but he had already passed away. And so she didn't find her father, but she did find Tom Jr., the Tom that we're talking about today, my uncle. And the funny part was that Mom knew that her father had remarried, had another family, and had a son. But Tom did not know that this other family existed. So Mom, through this, if you had like a half hour, I'd tell you the whole story about who she called in Pennsylvania, all this stuff. But you know, it was the mid-'70s when you could call up people and they'd actually give you information then. And so she got a hold of Tom and gets on the phone and is like, hey, I'm Jackie, you know, I'm your half-sister, getting back in touch with you. And he says, my dad didn't have another family, I don't know what you're talking about. And Mom's like, no, he did. And it was like this. And so she talked about a few relatives, and he's like, hey, some of those names are odd enough that if you know those names, you got to be a relative. And the thing that struck me later in life was that, you know, most people I think would hear this, you know, what if you got that call? You know, most people would hear this and be like, okay, I'm really weirded out by that. But this wasn't who Tom was. Tom said, I've got relatives now. I want to meet. Tom was all in, totally all in, and he came to Missouri, and here I am, like a sophomore in high school, and you know, I've got at this point in my life, all I have is like these old uncles, right? You know, on my dad's side, and now all of a sudden I got an uncle who's got long hair, a mustache, and he plays in a band, and he's funny. I'm like, my stock just went up. Yeah, and it was cool. I can remember that first night sitting in the living room, and I would be, you know, I'd be just sitting there, and I'd look over, and Tom would be just staring at me, because there, you know, especially when I was younger, there was this resemblance, and you know, he's like sorting it out, and even then, you know, I was like, okay, I get it, you know, so I'd let him stare at me, but we, yeah, I mean, it was great, you know. I'm telling all my friends, I'm like, hey, I got this new uncle, you know. And he shows up with his wife. I don't remember if Linda was his wife or girlfriend at the time, but you know, I think the term at the time was a fox. And you know, Linda shows up and she's pretty, and Tom's cool, and I'm like, these people are now in my life, and it was awesome. And we, you know, we stayed in touch, and we came out to visit them in Colorado. We heard Tom playing in his band, came up here to Evergreen. I can still remember them doing a version of Desperado that as a 16-year-old made an impression on me. And Tom, you know, they had this this kind of semi-hit called Football Widows that, you know, we'd hear on the radio, that a local station in Missouri played it every now and then. And so it was cool. It was, and we've been close. My wife and I ended up moving to Fort Collins, and we would come down and see Tom and Linda, so I've seen their kids grow up. And so, you know, I mean, I went 16 years without this guy in my life, and Tom.
Okay, so our brother is Jonathan Adams, who married Tom's daughter Kinsey. So she is our sister-in-law, and we love her like a sister. And one of our favorite, well, my favorite memory of Tom for sure is John and Kinsey's wedding when they had their father-daughter dance. I just thought Tom and Kinsey seemed so sweet together, and I loved seeing that relationship between them, and that was just one of my favorite memories of Tom dancing with Kinsey at their wedding. And also they had us over for Memorial Day one year, and we had so much fun playing cornhole and talking to Tom on the patio. We loved that, and he was great.
By the way, we didn't plan to match.
No.
This happened. I remember I went over to talk to John and Kinsey one day when they were still living at Tom's house, and he was just really friendly, and he's always like, have another drink. Did you have a drink? Are you good? Did you have another drink? And I just remember he was just really friendly, and yeah, he was great. So we love you guys.
We love you. We'll miss Tom for sure. We love your family so much. We're so glad to be a part of it.
So I met Tom. I'm a title rep, and I met Tom in the real estate industry. Tom was different though. Tom was someone I wanted to start every day of my career, or every day of my work week out with, because he was so positive all the time and so funny. And so I made it a point, and he was at the office early, which real estate agents don't do. So I made it a point to start every day with my friend Tom. And Tom would always start me off with a joke.
Every day.
That I never got them. I never got half of them, actually. And so I think that was part of his humor, because I never got what he was saying. But I truly loved him. And I got to know his family, I got to know Andrew, I heard about Zach, I heard about the boat and the water skiing, and I got to meet Linda, and Linda's amazing, but Tom truly will always have my heart. I miss him horribly. And
but are they, is it like dementia?
I just, I'm happy to be here to celebrate his life. I love you, Tom.
So I knew Tom through Kinsey growing up. We went to Cherry Creek Academy together, and then Tom actually got me into competitive basketball. So I remember he would drive us to basketball practice, and it was a long drive, and I just remember he had the fanciest car, and I thought just Kinsey and her whole family were just the coolest family. Andrew and Zach and their mom, and I just always looked up to their family and just thought this is like the perfect family. But I remember specifically one time that we were driving to practice, to basketball practice, and Tom had his fancy car and I was in the back seat. And I think he and Kinsey had planned this out a couple of times, and probably I was not their first victim, but I thought it was so cool because we were listening to the radio, and Kinsey did this little thing with her finger where she would turn up the volume, and at that time the cars with the volume control on the steering wheel, those were like, nobody had them. So I didn't know that you could do that, and so anytime Kinsey would do this with her finger, the volume on the radio would turn up. And I just didn't know what to do. I was like, what's going on here? And then later I realized I think they had planned that out. So, but Tom was always joking around, playing jokes on people like that, and Kinsey too. And I can't say, you know, I think the world of the family and all of you guys. And I love you guys, and Tom was amazing.
Okay, Tom and I worked together for many years in real estate. We had offices right next to each other, and many times during the day we would take a little break and go over to Applebee's for a beer and chips. And then he would tell me all the stories about his days at the band from years and years ago, and we just kind of reminisced about where we were back then and how he went to Parsons College and got into working with the drums and playing in the bands all these years. And funny thing was, in 1969, I was in Daytona Beach, Florida, at a place called the Beachcomber, and Tom was playing in the band at the Beachcomber. Of course, we didn't know each other, and we wouldn't meet for many, many years later. But it was we talked about the dates, and it was the same dates that I was in the club that he was on stage playing those drums. So our memories go back a long time, even before we even knew each other. We were in the same place together. So just wanted to say hi to the family, and had a lot of great memories with Tom in real estate, and having our little get-togethers over at Applebee's for a beer and chips.
I am Tom's daughter's mother-in-law, and so we love Kinsey. She's been amazing, and I just wanted to say that even though I didn't know Tom very well, I did a bit around him a little bit, but what I noticed was that Linda, how much joy you had when he was around, and it didn't matter what he said or what he did or what he joked about. You just thought he was amazing, and just his demeanor was so calm that you guys just sparked so much love between you two that just stands out in my mind, and I just see how much you love him because of the joy that you had when you were around him, even though I didn't really get to talk to him all that much. But anyway, just want to say I love you.
My name is Ted Posilius, and I played in a band with Tom. I played in a band called Both Barrels, and I played probably for 5 years. I played piano. Tom was a drummer, no surprise there. And Tom and I played together about 5 feet away from each other for about 5 years. I was there in Durango the night that he decided to come back and have a baby with Linda. And I was there for a number of other things. One thing that I do remember, we would do a song called Last Date, and Last Date is a Floyd Kramer song. It's an instrumental song, it's a country song, and it's slow, and Tom didn't like the song. Tom made no bones about the song, and we used to let Tom, as we would play this song, he would sit in the back of the drum going, "I hate this song." And this would be going, this was serious, where people are really liking this song, and he goes, "I hate this." Is a Tom thing. And there are many Tom things. This is just one of those that I'll remember for all my life. And I was so glad to have known Tom and to have been a friend of his. Thanks.
Our daughters played basketball together, and we have fond memories of being cohorts, taking them back and forth for basketball. And my son especially didn't like going with the girls because it was boring for him, but he would always say, you know, is Tom going to be there? And if that was the case, then he would come along because he liked the sports commentaries from the sidelines that Tom would make, and he loved Tom's laugh, and my kids just really enjoyed Tom as a person and the family as well, and we always loved spending time with them, and we as a family remember Tom fondly when we think about it. And we remember one time spending Thanksgiving with them, and it was very meaningful for our family because we were going through a tough time then, and they opened up their home to us, and we always remember that. And my kids always remember going water skiing. But Emmy and Kinsey, they played basketball together and had a lot of fun. So.
Okay, I'm Mary James. I'm one of the Hughes kids, and I started working at Cherry Creek with my brother Mike, who then talked Tom into hiring me as his assistant when Mike decided to jump ship and go to California. So then I was kind of the poster child at Cherry Creek, teaching others how to not do things as an admin. We had to figure out the pay system and what we could do not licensed, and I decided I had to get my license because I couldn't do it and shut up, and that's how you had to be in those days. So, Tom hired me